agenda, previous minutes, and reports. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept them.
I'll second. I wasn't here, so that's why I didn't.
Okay. And they pass. Agenda preview and prioritization.
I just want to say that we have an Alice parent presentation at 6 o'clock. So I'm hoping we could be as efficient as we can be for this board meeting tonight. I think we can do it. We've been pretty efficient.
Okay. And visitors. Annette, are you a visitor or are you?
I am leaving.
Okay.
In about 2 seconds.
You do not have to hurry.
No, I'm not rushing you. No,
Saying that.
just double checking.
No, I think it's incidental.
And Lynn, you're up.
Oh. Every town we do it a little differently. Sometimes I'm first and sometimes I'm not. Okay, so I do not have anything under personnel at this time. I don't have anything under student. I do have a transportation piece. So I received an email from a parent with a request about busing for kids who live within the town of Richford when it's an extremely cold weather day. So I'm gonna just read this to you and open it up to a conversation. So it says, good morning, I have a question that I brought up 2 years ago, but I didn't get anywhere with it. My daughter goes to Richford High School. She's in 9th grade. We live on Intervale Avenue in Richford. There is no busing available for her right now. My problem is that my partner and I both work in Colchester and leave the house between 6 and 6:30. When the weather turns cold, sometimes in the very negative digits, as you know, she is forced to walk to school. She talks about why this is unsafe, worries about vehicles losing control, and also that the temperatures are so low that it's dangerous. Worries that there are kids that live in town. Well, she's saying that the inclement weather sometimes causes a child to miss school because of that walk. So I told her I would bring this. I talked to Beth about it, and she said that you guys, as a board, was it a year ago?
2
2
years
years
ago.
ago?
I vaguely
2 years
remember
ago.
something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, had a conversation about that. So I just wanted to open it up for a conversation with you all. I don't know the current status of capacity on your buses. I know that your practice has been that no one that lives within it's called the village
Yeah.
of Richford has busing
To
available
6,
to
yeah,
them.
for 6 through 8.
6 through 8.
I mean, 6 through 12, yeah.
Okay.
How many buses would it take? Do you
There are
think?
4.
3 or 4?
No, should
No.
they
No, I mean,
currently
how
have
many,
four?
how
Oh,
many
do we
buses would it
currently
take? If we did something like this, how many buses do you think it?
Well, I think there'd probably be room. What she's saying is for inclement weather. The thing that that I don't know if she realizes is that the bus doesn't go on that back street. The bus picks up by Max or by Vista on the corner, and it picks up on the other end of the street by the old Spears Funeral Home. So if she'd have to walk out to the end of the street, and they pick up on the way to the elementary school, but they never go down that street.
It's the way to from here, correct?
Right. They leave here,
Yeah.
and then they're on the same side of the street as Vista, and when they're picking up
Yeah.
to go to the elementary school. So there's really no bus stop there. But if she were to cross, but then I think if she's going to come out to the main street and then cross the street, like down by your bakery, and you walk that far, are you gonna stand there in the cold for a
Right,
bus,
10
or
minutes.
are you gonna walk the rest of the way to the high school? I would think that you'd wanna keep moving rather than
And
stand.
it might be quicker to walk to the high school. than
That's what
take a
I-
bus, right? Really, your 10
Because
minutes.
the bus doesn't go on that back street at all. So I don't know how it would work. It's not like I think anybody would be opposed to her riding, but logistically, I'm not sure how it would work.
So are there buses that come that way when the buses are coming towards the high
Yes.
school? Do
Like
they make
Rick
any
Firth,
stops?
Rick Firth comes from South Richford Road, and then he comes up by the fountain, and then he takes a right and comes down Main Street. But I don't know if Rick normally picks up on Main Street. I'm not sure who, and I would guess they pick up on the way down because they don't like kids to cross the street. So I think, that white apartment building there,
Mm-hmm.
I know Rick comes that way, and I think Brenda comes that way. So I think two of the buses come, and Robert does too. So I think they all come down the main road. Because Robert comes from Stevens Mills, East Richford. So he comes that way too.
Do you know anything about capacity, like how full they are?
They have room. They would have room to pick up any high school kid that was walking and wanted to ride, I'm sure. And I think that's where this conversation went last time. That's why it didn't go anywhere. Nobody was opposed to it.
Right.
We just didn't know logistically how it would work. Like, would the buses just stop if it was really cold and pick up any kids that were walking?
Right, define inclement weather. At what point
Right.
is it?
Well, I'd be more worried about, the children being out there at 20 below zero, standing out there for 10 minutes. They might as well just walk.
When in 10 minutes they can be here.
Right.
What time are the doors open here?
We, I get here at 5:45 and I exercise in the morning, and I get done the exercise class at 7, and we're letting kids in the door at 7.
About 7.
And their kids, they could come in for the exercise class, it'd be free. Rossi offers it free to them if they wanna come, so they could get in as early as 6 o'clock in the morning if they wanna be in the building. Right, that's another thing. What time did her mother say she left?
She didn't give me a time, but in the phone conversation.
Did you say 6:30? Did you just say something about 6:30?
6 or 6 or
Six.
before
I thought you
6.
said 6 or
I
6:30.
don't think. Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, she
Leave
could
the house
get
between
dropped off.
6 and 6:30.
And that first set of doors is always unlocked after
Yeah.
you get here anyway, and there's heat there as well.
The
So
front, the main doors open at, like, from the outside at 6 o'clock in the morning.
So
And
to stand
then-
between
Yeah,
until.
and in between there's heat in there, and then usually, oftentimes the janitors will let kids in. There are kids who get here before 7, but I let anybody in after 7.
But I'll bet that she wouldn't want to do that, would be my guess, that they would want to go out later, so,
Right.
Well, my
I-
question is, if there was a defined spot in town, that if kids were waiting there, if it felt too cold, could we set it up with the bus company that if kids were at that spot, they would stop and pick them up?
just like one bus.
A spot, yeah.
A spot.
Yeah.
So like by the park, maybe.
Yeah, that's where I was saying that, I think that right by the.
By the stop sign, maybe even.
I
Before
think
they
that
turn
it
onto
would be
Main
better
Street.
like by that white apartment building, because I think there's kids here that they stop for.
Right next to the
maybe like the-
rectory?
Right next to,
Right.
no,
That's
right
parking
next
lot,
to
maybe?
the.
Or you're thinking
Church
a
parking
park.
lot, right in there.
They can't.
Well,
We don't
they-
want them to cross the
Right.
The
road.
two buses are probably coming from
Right.
South
South
Richford
Richford
and East Richford.
I think you'd be better off by the Missisquoi Overlook Park there, in that area, that white apartment building down that.
So between there and Moritz.
Mhm. Between that white apartment building and the bakery would be the places I would recommend.
At the crosswalk?
There's
Aren't there two
crosswalk.
crosswalks?
Oh,
Isn't-
down-
It'd
down
walk
to
down
the-
farther, yeah.
But we would just have to designate one of the buses to pick up. I don't think it should be Robert's bus. I think that it would be, although Robert's bus is earliest in the morning, isn't it? I think Robert's bus gets here first.
Well, it could be something that you figure out with the bus company,
Yeah.
right? And
Right,
then
find
maybe
out capacity,
communicate.
find out what
Yeah.
time the 2 or 3 buses come through, and,
Yeah, what's the latest time you pick them up? 'Cause
Right, I don't
they're
know,
there about
yeah.
this time.
but
don't know.
I agree, it should be one bus, not, if there's 2 buses coming
Right.
through, it shouldn't be, they both
Right.
stop at
Right.
different times, it should be just one.
Well, isn't there one bus that stops there anyway?
Yeah, there's one bus that stops,
So if they're not full, if that kid was there.
but I
or-
would recommend it, the reason I'm recommending it not be Robert is because Brenda, I think it's gotta be Rick.
And-
Because Brenda does. It
Is
could
Robert
be
the one
Brenda
that
too.
currently
So
stops?
Brenda does the end of town, I think she drops off and then does the end of town, like Liberty Street, Center Street, that area. And then I think Robert does, he comes down Main Street and then turns and goes up Townhouse Hill, down by the laundromat, up Townhouse Hill, and then back around to the, but I don't know if he does that, I think he does it after he drops up here. In the morning, he must drop off here and then go up like, toward the train station and take a left. So I think Rick would be the best person to do it, but I can ask them.
And then how will kids know?
But we're gonna start sending a weekly newsletter, a weekly email to all parents in the middle high school.
Okay.
Just with important dates, and it's posted in different places, like on our Facebook, but some people don't look at Facebook or have it, so we're just gonna send an email blast out like weekly or bi-weekly.
Okay.
So we could put it in
Just
there.
include it there. They can tell her to look there.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then, is it just gonna be all winter or under certain temperature?
I mean, that's the part
I'll get the
I don't
information
know
out right.
about. I don't know about how to, are we gonna make him like, if it's 10 or below, like is he gonna check the temp and not stop if
Right.
I
And then
almost
what
think
happens if
that.
it's exactly 10
If there's
below?
somebody
Right.
there,
I mean, if there's somebody
just
there,
stop.
I kind of think,
Right.
they should just stop.
if you have
they-
room and there's somebody there, do you have any objection to that? I mean,
I don't care.
I don't want to put him into a situation where you're going to be power struggling over a
Right.
couple of degrees.
Right.
Right.
Right,
Fahrenheit,
and it
you know.
depends on which, are you using weather.com or are you using, what are you
Yeah.
using to
Right.
define the
The
temperature?
Right.
thermometer
exactly.
in the truck or bus?
Yeah.
Or, right. So yeah.
Okay, so if they're there, they'll just
Right.
stop and pick them up. Okay.
Most
Perfect.
kids will keep, if it were me, I'd keep moving,
I would too.
because I'd freeze standing out there.
And you'd have to have a time that they'd be coming through.
Right, that's what we're
You'll
gonna get, we're gonna
communicate.
put that in the email.
And Beth
Okay.
knows that firsthand because I'm pretty sure you used to walk to school on that same route
Yes, I did,
Me too.
a couple days ago.
a couple days ago, yeah.
So should it be like from December 1st to April 1st? Not year round, right?
Right,
Are you good with that?
I'm fine with that.
December 1st to what?
April 1st? That's just a suggestion.
Right. And we'll call the bus company.
And the same thing with rain or whatever. I mean, if it was pouring
Well, if
down
it's
rain,
from
would
December
they have
1st
that
to
option?
April
It would be
1st,
snow.
it would, it's gonna be any day.
Any day.
Okay.
If the
except-
bus driver
Any day
sees
they want.
kids there,
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have to be clear in advance, though, that it's not a choice to pick a later bus.
right.
That you're going to have that one
It's this one
stop
bus.
if
Right.
this is
Designate.
what.
It might be
Stop at a
easier for us
designated
just to talk directly to Rick first, because I think it's gonna be Rick's bus, so maybe I'll talk to Rick and then call the bus company afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. I think you'll have a happy parent. Negotiations update. We are getting ready. We received our letter from the teachers union that they want to open negotiations. So we'll be starting that process.
Wasn't there a meeting
next
set
month or
up?
So we have a
The
meeting.
23rd?
Not with them yet, but just to do some goal setting.
Oh, okay.
From the board's perspective,
Right.
so that we do have a meeting. Who is on negotiations from this board?
Me and Andy, I think.
You and Andy? Okay. So you're able to come to that meeting?
On the 23rd?
Yeah.
Yep. I already have it in my calendar,
Okay.
I think. Better check.
I have a negotiation that I'll need you to go into executive session for, so I can either do that now or I could wait until the end of mine. It's up to you.
we can wait.
Okay, so we'll come back to that one. I want to go over the public high school choice, the Act 123 stuff. And this is something I did in Enosburg last week, so that we can all just get crystal clear about timelines and process around what is stated in statute. So I'll send these copies around. I'll give you one too. So I tried to organize what was written in statute. So the deadlines, the timelines that are embedded in there are pretty clear. So you will hear from me in your January meeting. I'll be asking you to determine and announce your capacity for the number of students that you'll allow to transfer into Richford from other schools. I'll also be asking you to determine and announce your number of students that you're willing to allow to transfer out of your school. So there are some limits that parameters that you have to live within. So in terms of kids transferring out, 10% of all resident students or 40 students, whichever is less. And students transferring out of your school, it's 5% of your of your students enrolled in your high school, or 10 students, whichever is less. Okay? So we're going to be doing that at the January meeting. If you turn the page, this is just talking about process. So those first two I just reviewed in terms of the February 1st deadline. The application of the students, there's been some confusion about this. This is why I am bringing this to boards, because the applications are actually supposed to go to the school that they're in. So on or before March 1st, any student who is seeking to attend a different school for the next year must apply to the school where they reside. So if you have a Richford student that all of a sudden now wants to go to MVU, they need to, by March 1st, give Beth an application. We're going to be firm on that deadline throughout the supervisory union. On March 5th, schools whose boards have set a limit on outgoing students and that receive applications, if you have more students who have applied than you have allowed in your limit, you have to have a non-discriminatory lottery. So we will set that up, because we have a pretty strict timeline in terms of actions for the receiving school as well. So it's kind of outlined that if you have, one lottery and then there's a second choice, kids have to give their second or third choice for schools that they wish to attend. So this just really clearly articulates for us how that process works.
So it's not first come, has first dibs.
It's
now.
lottery.
Okay.
So we take that number as of that date. So there are some resources here that I could send to you electronically so that you could link in and see the full documents that I used to create this timeline for you. So there's one document that provides the guideline on the limits, and then another document that provides the guidance on the timeline. So by April 15th, we get decisions from students, and the number of kids that you're going to have leaving or coming is defined by April 15th, which I think we'll all be really happy with. On the next page, there's a letter. I actually wrote this letter to Jane. She can attest. I think it's sent to her in July. It's a letter that's going to go out in January to all of your students, that just notifying them that they have this ability to apply for school choice. So I think what got tricky and made this a little bit confusing, if you turn the page, this is the application that was created by the state. And then if you turn the page again, that was an existing form in one of our high schools that we were using, and I'm making it so that we're all using that state form, because just because we named it in one, it kind of, I think, has implied to people that that's where they bring these applications. And the application for any student from Richford is going to Richford, because this is where this is all intended to originate. So I'm just trying to streamline this process so that we have complete clarity about how this is going to go down.
I think that's the way we were doing it.
Mm-hmm. There's, on this back page, it's really clear about the sending school instructions and the choice school instructions. So know that we are, in this whole process, we're dealing with multiple schools from all over the county, really. So this is just an effort for us to all get on the same page. What questions do you have for me?
One question I have, if a kid has done school choice, they don't have to do the application again, they are just in?
Yeah.
Because we have one here that's here for school choice, and we've never made her do the application
No, you
again.
don't have to.
She just
Once
in.
they're in
Okay.
it just
Yeah.
continues. Morgan, well, I'm going to skip ahead to Alice. Can you try to find the SBE metrics for decision making?
I will try.
The draft that we talked about the other day. I didn't put that in this pile. And it's okay if you don't, because I think between the two of us we can come up with most of it. So, I know I already mentioned when we first got started about the Alice meeting that's happening. It's just intended to be informational for families so that they know their kids are going to come home and they're going to start using a different language than what they have used in the past. They're not gonna be talking about lockdowns anymore, they're gonna be talking about counters, they're gonna be talking about the options that kids are potentially training for. So I wanted to make sure that you all know as board members, you're always welcome to attend those things, and you're welcome to step in there with us tonight. In terms of Act 46, we've been trying to grab onto any nuggets that we can find. Morgan is really great about getting on and watching those state board meetings once they're posted. The state board met the first week in October, and they spent the majority of their meeting trying to determine what are the metrics they're going to use to decide upon accepting Section 9 proposals in whole or in part or not at all. So there are some things that the data is kind of pointing us to. They've asked the Agency of Education to provide data around which of the schools that they have to make a decision around, which school districts actually went through the formal process of doing a 706B study committee, which of those schools then took that study committee and went through the formal process of having a duly warned vote of their public to vote on what the recommendation of the study committee was. They've also, the state board has asked us for minutes of all of our board meetings, or the board meetings in Enosburg and Richford, and then in Montgomery, for when your board approved that Section 9 proposal that was submitted. So we think that one of the things they're looking at is, did they comply with the expectations of the law as one of the things. They, other things that are in that metrics have centered around the term contiguous. They're going to be looking to see whether or not the districts are contiguous. We know that there's they've talked about debt load, and I know that that's been important for voters in Richford to talk about. So the way they have talked about that in that last meeting is that they're going to look at per pupil spending, and they're going to try to look to see if they're trying to merge two entities, and if the difference in per pupil spending is greater than 20%. That's one of the factors they'll look at, and they think that that varying debt load might impact that. Morgan, can you think of any others that I haven't mentioned?
Got 'em.
Okay, so we know that there's another state board meeting. They're trying to schedule an extra meeting. We've gotten a sense that we were hoping that we would hear an early determination, but I'm not getting the sense from what I've heard from state level leaders, and neither is Morgan, that that's really hopeful. That it seems like this process is going to take them right through the end of November is what our best guess is at this time. So.
And what's the date now?
November 30th.
That's okay.
So we will know they're bound by statute to drop that final plan by the 30th. And we know that that deadline that the agency had for dropping their final plan, it was into that evening. So it could be the same way for this. We know the 30th is on a Friday, and we'll see it at some point near that deadline is what we expect. So anything else?
The last meeting, what they said they were planning on doing was kind of working through the list of proposals, taking the easy ones first and making a tentative decision and putting it aside, and then working their way down. So we may, I don't think we'll see the final plan until November 28th, which is the last scheduled meeting they have at this point. But we may get an indication earlier than that if they say, okay, this is what we're going to do with Franklin County, let's move on, and then they would have the option to come back to that, but I doubt they would once they make a call.
Right. Any questions that we probably won't have the answers to? Okay, so could we go back to negotiations? We went to executive.
I'll make the motion.
We'll enter executive for personnel.
For administrator negotiations.
Administrator negotiations. Or exited.
Okay, make a motion to accept the proposal for Manu McGraw's salary increases.
So to instructing me to act as per
As per.
executive discussion. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
All right, that is all I have for you.
Was that before you said Barrett?
Mayhew and McGraw.
Mayhew and McGraw, okay, that's right, okay.
Because I can't. I'm wired. I'm hardwired.
You said that was all you had.
That's all I have.
I'm gonna have credentials to be hardwired.
Morgan, you're up.
Everything that I sent you was informational. The only other that I would toss in there is just so you guys are thinking about the budgeting process. We may not know till the end of December who all I'm budgeting with. The off-the-shelf articles of agreement haven't been finalized yet from the state board. That, I'm told, is not gonna happen until sort of middle of November. What they will do is they will lay out the process for who is on that transition board. Those people will have the official responsibility of warning a budget. I have started working with the principals on gathering the information that they want in the budget, but at this point, just telling you to be flexible on that. I don't know who of you gets to decide. And it's gonna be a lot of waiting and then a lot of really quick activity as we try to hammer this through basically in December.
Should I talk about the structure that's established that we think for membership? So the way it stands now is that the proposal is whoever was serving as the chair and as the clerk as of July 1st, 2018 become the two members of that transitional board. Sorry, Mark. But we see some problems in that, you know, that's almost 6 months from when that work is going to have to start. So we can envision that some of these places are going to have people who have either moved or resigned or can't fulfill the obligation of what that kind of work is going to require in that time period. So Morgan and I actually wrote a letter to the state board and said, okay, we see that this transitional board membership is made up of chair and clerk. However, what if one of them can't serve in that capacity? You have to tell us in advance what the process will be for filling an empty seat, because what we can't afford is a lag in time. We can't have an empty seat in either of those communities because one member being absent, right, throws off that proportion for one, but two members being absent means we have no quorum. And this is going to be work, like Morgan said, it's slow right now because we don't know who we're building a budget with, but once we know, it's going to be full speed ahead, and it's not going to be at an opportune time because it's going to be that first part of December.
So would it be two, I mean, there'd be equal representation?
On your transitional board?
Yes.
And then you're going to have to get at the vote of what are your articles of agreement going to be to determine what your membership will be. You'll have to put those in front of your voters, so.
The draft ones had equal representation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that the transitional board will be the entity that will bring those forward to voters, correct?
We think.
There's some uncertainty around pieces of this because we're waiting for the default articles of agreement to be finalized, and they're not. They didn't even really get time to talk about it at the last state board meeting. So we're not sure if they'll get to that in the next session or not. So wherever they land on those default articles, it's kind of how we start, and then it describes how we move forward to get to our own articles of agreement. So we're not 100% certain where all of this will land, but we'll try to keep you informed when we know.
You mentioned budget. Where are we with the window project?
With the what?
Window.
Where are they? They had, I thought that they were going to see if they could get the information together to put it out to bid last year. And they never did it for last summer. So I do not know. They came and measured.
Yep.
What is the document that they need to put it out to bid?
They would just put an RFP out.
So they needed that for the RFP. And I have not heard from him since they came to measure.
Okay. You can follow up.
We still have funds available for that, right?
Yeah.
Who is it that we're waiting to hear from? Who are we waiting to hear from?
The architect, John.
Black River?
Yeah. Black River Design. It wasn't John, it was Mark, somebody, right?
Right.
You all set, Morgan?
I'm all set.
Beth, you're up.
Okay, so I was asked about donating sick time for Virginia Rainville or Virginia Rainville, but did that ever get brought to the SU board?
Tomorrow.
It's going tomorrow, but Jamie said that I should ask tonight, because if Richford teachers wanted to do it, then I would have to have approval from you in order to make that happen. And we've done that previously for people, but she ended up having the baby like 8 weeks early, 8, 9 weeks early, and so she would like to be gone through Thanksgiving break, I think. And so, but her time runs out soon. So if people wanted to donate, would you be agreeable to that?
How many weeks are you talking? Do you know roughly?
So I believe she's out of time at the end of this week.
Oh, at the end of this week.
Into this week?
So we're
So
talking
she
probably
had
6
39 and a half of the 61 that she needed. She had that, or that's what she needed? I think she's missing around 20 days.
Yes.
So it would be, if they were willing to donate a couple of days towards that leave, that we would allow them to do that.
I think she had around 39, 40, but she needed 60.
Yeah.
So in the past, didn't we do up to or no more than 2 days
Yep.
per person?
You've only done it once, well, oh no, you've done it a couple of times when I've been principal, and I think that's what you've done. You said people could give up to 2 days, and then you usually say up
Cap.
to the total amount that the
What she
person
wants, right.
needs.
So the SU board is gonna create essentially what that cap is in my mind.
Okay.
But if you could agree that you would allow, because she's an SU employee.
Right, she's SU, that's why I know.
But she works in Richford. So if Richford employees would be willing to donate to her, which we think most of them want to support her. So, I mean, you could tell us a recommendation, she needs 20 to get to that amount. If you said, yes, we'll let the Richford employees donate, the recommendation to the SU board would be not more than 20.
More than 20.
Right.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yep.
Jim Bowes was out at the beginning of the school year. I think he went out the day after Labor Day, and he was out until the beginning of last week, I believe. And Bob Norris didn't really have a sub, but he gave me his personal number, and Jared Adams was very helpful. I texted Jared Adams a few times, and he was very responsive. And so I asked how the compensation was gonna work, and what they had told me is that we pay in advance. Is that correct, Morgan? We pay in advance?
We pay, we've got a contract amount and we pay 3 times a year.
Okay, so they're going to adjust for the amount of days he was out, because we didn't essentially have coverage from, I have it written down, but for a good chunk of time, like over 30 days. And so they're going to adjust it in the next billing cycle. So we'll be receiving a credit and paying less than we expected this year because of that.
So you'll see that when you're signing those warrants.
No.
Don't get excited, it won't stay at that level.
Right. There's a a bunch of information there about school activities and events, and one thing that just was scheduled that you might be interested in are 2 community forums, or 2 political forums, where the candidates for the House and the Senate will be here tomorrow morning for first block and Wednesday morning for first block. I can't remember which day. I think tomorrow's the representatives and Wednesday's the Senate. And Liz Erickson.
I think it's opposite.
It's the opposite?
I think, because I
I
looked
posted
at
it
it
to
today.
Facebook. It's on Facebook.
Okay.
And Liz Erickson has arranged for this in collaboration with the local TV station. They're working with her. And so it's going to be first block for any kids that are interested, and it's open up to the community. So it's not really a debate, but just a forum.
And where is that?
It's going to be in the gym
The gym.
from 8:10 till 9 o'clock. Tomorrow and Wednesday mornings.
Will people be able to ask questions, Beth? Do you know?
I think that's what it said.
I think there are questions
Okay.
that you can ask
can ask
questions, but it's not a debate. It's just more informational. Like, they aren't going to debate the questions. But if you have a specific question of a specific candidate, you can ask.
Okay.
And then I put information there regarding tuition students, the history over the past several years, the past 6 years, so that you could see that. As you can see, our numbers fell off last year, but came back up again this year, which we were pleased about.
So, you sent an email the other day about enrollment,
Oh, that was October 1st enrollment?
Yes.
and
And
if I'm correct, our building was the only building that had an increase in the SU, correct?
Correct.
yes.
Which is
The
a good thing.
elementary K6 numbers went down a little bit. K5 or K6? Were those numbers K6 or K5?
K5.
K5 went down a little bit, but the pre-K numbers went up. That's why we had to adjust the days, because we weren't able to offer programming to everybody without adjusting the days. So our pre-K numbers went up quite a bit, but our K5 went down slightly. Let's see, I'm going to tell you, both forums will be held during high school first block, 8:10 to 8:55. The Senate candidates will be here on Tuesday, you're right, and the House candidates will be here on Wednesday. A candidate forum is not a debate, but a chance for the candidates to introduce themselves and answer questions from the community. So it is on Facebook. That's all I had.
Board business, set any future agenda items?